On today's podcast, we are going to talk about women in business, specifically physical therapy business. We're going to talk about being a mom and a businesswoman, and we are going to talk about perimenopause, all in one big talk. So stay tuned. Welcome to Down There, a podcast dedicated to pelvic health and wellness for men and women. Well, hello, and welcome to another lovely episode of the podcast Down There. At the time of this recording, I am at a mastermind retreat in Minnesota, and we are at our lovely retreat facility. And I thought it would be fun just to get together with two of my colleagues, and we're going to talk girl stuff. So I'm Laura McKaig. I am a pelvic floor physical therapist in the Kansas City area, and I'm going to let Lianne and Lindsay introduce themselves.
I'm Lianne Rogers. I am a physical therapist for older adults in Phoenix, Arizona.
And what's the name of your practice?
The name of my practice is Balanced by Lee Physical Therapy. I'm also a mom of a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old.
And I'm Lindsay. I own Beyond Physical Therapy. We are just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We specialize in treating mostly orthopedic conditions. And I am a mom of a 3-year-old daughter.
All right. So ladies, just to let the audience know, how did we all end up meeting each other? Because I've known you all, what?
Yeah,
3-4 years or so?
Longer, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Through our group, Uncaged Clinician.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Coaching group.
Yes. We're trained to be physical therapists, but not trained to be business owners.
Yeah.
So this is how we learn, but also we get to connect with other business owners and learn from them, learn from their businesses, and learn from their lives.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think cultivate just friendships.
Right. Yes. You know, this is part of my tribe. And when you go into business for yourself, it's like no person should be an island. It's really hard to figure things out by yourself. And if you're trying that, you probably already know what I mean. If you think, oh, I can go ahead and start a business, I'm a great therapist, no problem, you might have another thing coming to you. And, you know, that's what we have learned is we don't have those, none of us really have the business skills to make a successful practice, but we had the drive, we had the desire, we had the skills. And so coming together and really working together as well as working virtually. You know, we get together every other week on Zoom and go through problems and hear from our coaches and, you know, share each other's lives. So it's been great. So what I want to ask is, first of all, how each of you got into your business. You were probably physical therapists, maybe working for somebody else. What made you decide to go out on your own?
For me, it was just seeing the need in the older adult population, the lack of care or quality care that they received working in just your fast-paced outpatient clinic. And just, you know, they need more support. And sometimes you need more support in how you do your exercise. You need, you just don't get to spend enough time with them in that environment. And just, so I travel to their homes and I do, my whole practice is mobile. So just being in their environment and being in their home and seeing how they live and how they move in their space, you can see so much more than you can when you're in a clinic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I started my business about 6 years ago, and prior to that, my husband would always tease me that I would get the 2-year itch wherever I was working. Luckily, not a year. It just didn't work. What I found was that in like the world of orthopedics and large companies, large hospital organizations, that I wasn't able to practice the way that I really wanted to. So kind of a similar situation to Lianne, like just being able to take the time that was required with patients and get a truly individualized approach. And also I would find that in like the corporate arena as a physical therapist, either you were a treating physical therapist or you were a treating physical therapist on track to go into administration. And since treating, I could only do so much and I didn't want to go into administration, it ultimately just kind of led reluctantly to starting my own business so that I could do things the way that I wanted to without all of the red tape of the bureaucracy, but also without the red tape of insurance. So my practice doesn't take insurance at all. Everything is out of pocket, but that allows for the freedom to be able to do everything within my scope of practice. So my patients get a much more well-rounded experience. And ultimately it saves them time and money because we can treat multiple things at the same time, get much more out of each minute of our visit as opposed to what we used to have in the corporate environment.
That's kind of the beauty of having our own practice, because each of us has a different practice model. You know, I am all in person, in session, in the sessions, and I'm a what you call a hybrid practice. I take some insurances. I'm able to work with veterans. I'm with the VA Community Care Network, but I also do self-pay. And I think Lianne has even a different business model than us.
Yeah. It's hybrid where I do insurance. I take Medicare and some Medicare Advantage plans and then private pay, but I'm not in a clinic, right? Like I said, I'm mobile. So I go to people's homes and I treat them there. So yeah, similar, but their settings are a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of you may be thinking, wow, you're a mom and you're a business owner and a physical therapist. Let's talk about what are some of the challenges, the joys and the challenges of being a mom and a business owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are things that I didn't really realize until having my daughter, because I had her 3 years into my business. So, in a lot of ways, my business is very much the same. And in a lot of other ways, it is very much different. I personally am not very good at setting boundaries of like when my workday is done. As being a business owner, you're always kind of on, even when you're not working in the business, you're thinking about the business, you're, scheming for the next day, all of those things. And with having my daughter, I had to put a hard stop on that because especially when she was an infant, I was sleep deprived. And every last bit of my energy was getting used up. So, I had to actually stick to these boundaries of when my workday was done, I really was done. And then I wanted to be fully engaged with my daughter when I was with her. So that even though my in-clinic time looked very similar, my time outside the office was definitely more valuable and more structured. And that does carry over somewhat in the clinic to I have a very finite amount of time available. And so I need to make the most out of that time because I can't just make up for it after I get home or even after my daughter goes to bed, because that's the time I might be able to see my husband or I just go to bed too.
Yeah. I was kind of on the other side where I already had kids before I started my practice, and what also led me to start my practice was just wanting more of the flexibility of my schedule and to be able to set times when I wanted to go on field trips or, my kids had appointments, being able to take off and go and do that and not feel like I couldn't do it because I was stuck in this 7 to 5 or 6 o'clock job, and didn't have that ability to do what I wanted when I wanted. So yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. Juggling mom duties, work duties, wife duties. And then I think the transition into our 40s is a whole another kind of area that is you start learning about yourself and what your body is doing and how you have to really make yourself a priority and making sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. Yeah.
They're in their 40s. I'm not. Been there, done that. Let's see. Well, let's talk about that. You're a business owner in your 40s. I know a lot of the topics. Hello, B. Okay. I know one of the big topics in pelvic health is perimenopause, which surprisingly can happen as early as your mid-30s and often in your 40s. Do you ladies want to have a talk about?
I know when there's not a peek to my face.
Hang on. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh. We interrupt this program for B getting a little too close.
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I started noticing just little things in my mood and how I wouldn't remember things as much, or I'd have brain fog. I'd have lack of energy when I got home from work. I just didn't want to do any more work as soon as I was done treating. And it took a lot of self-advocacy for myself to find the right provider who would not just kind of gaslight me or dismiss me, especially my symptoms. But I think once you can find that right person who understands and who'll listen to you, and being on the healthcare side and understanding what patients go through, not listening to it, and then being on the reverse side of like, I'm the patient and I just want someone to listen to me and understand what I'm going through was really frustrating. But yeah, it takes a lot of, standing up for yourself and like, nope, this provider isn't listening. It's not going to do, or she's not going to do what I want. Or, I take my labs and they would tell me, oh, everything's fine. But it's like, I know I don't feel fine. So it was a good couple years before I found someone who, listened and acknowledged that, what you're going through is not in your head, and here's why. And but it's a big adjustment to everything that you're juggling as a mom and a business owner.
Yeah. That all of a sudden your body is changing. You're like, hey, and I just turned 60, and I didn't really know any about this when I was in my 40s. And so there was a definite less education. There wasn't any social media. I'm kind of dating myself here, but there wasn't social media. The ways of learning about it and learning how to advocate were very, very limited. And so it was really common knowledge. Well, it's part of getting old. Just deal with it, or you just put up with it. So I'm glad the gals now get the information. A lot of times it's information overload, and you have to figure out what information is legit for you. But there's a lot more information out there and a lot more guidance on how to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an interesting experience because I had my daughter in my very late 30s. And so I went from being pregnant to postpartum to, I think I felt maybe normal for like a month. And then like all of a sudden I'm in like, the late reproductive stages, the very like first like inklings of perimenopause. And so like I've, been going through all of these like changes, and like I love the term like cougar puberty in the last like 3 years. And I feel like it helps you relate with my patients really well, because it's a similar situation when you have, let's call it like low back pain, right? Like there is all of a sudden your body is different. You're moving differently. It affects your mood. It affects your sleep. It affects your family life. And then like, if you go on Google or ChatGPT and you look up low back pain, then you get just a barrage of information, and some of it's good. A lot of it's not. And so again, like it's this whole being an advocate for yourself, and paying attention to yourself and to your symptoms, and trying to be as like really as proactive about it as possible. Cause I feel like because I'm on the very early stages of this, that like there's things that I'm hoping that I can catch now so that I don't have to have such a traumatic like perimenopausal experience that I know a lot of my friends have had.
Yeah. And I think that surprises people how early it can happen, and that it can go on for, sorry to tell you this, about 10 years, maybe for some people. And that's kind of that whole transition for us as women that we go through. But I think if we go through it more informed and just kind of knowing a little bit more what to expect, and knowing that we can make changes for the positive is very, very empowering.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think more and more women are standing up for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Going to the doctors and making that choice. Yeah. But I can't do it if you're not educated or excited about the topics.
Right. Or even like just having these conversations like amongst like women friend groups. And I like that that's a safe space to have these conversations about these like symptoms that are somewhat innocuous sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and then like as like friends being able to pass resources to each other so that like, because especially if you don't have a medical background, it's hard to figure out, what information is quality and what's not. And so being able to be in a circle with other people who are going through it, who can help sift through some of these resources and point you in an evidence-based and safe direction, I think that's super valuable as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, neither of you is a pelvic health provider, right? We all have, all three of us have different specialties. Mm-hmm. However, my guess is that the people you see also have issues with pelvic health. Maybe they have pelvic floor dysfunction or concerns. What do you see, like Lianne, in your population? What are some of the more common problems that both men or women might have who could benefit from a pelvic floor provider that maybe you could give them information or you can point them in the right direction?
Yeah. My practice, like I said, I work with people 65 and older. And so almost all of them have some kind of incontinence, right? They have to, they're afraid to drink water because they're going to have to go to the bathroom and they're never going to make it in time. And I deal a lot with balance and falls, and that's huge because then they're trying to rush to get to the bathroom so they don't leak or they don't have an accident. So it's, it's highly prevalent in the patients I see. And it's a sad to hear them just feel like, oh, it's something I have to live with.
Yeah.
And, I'll try to tell them like, there's things that can be done for it. And, you can seek out this provider, that provider.
Yeah.
But I've never met one of my patients who have said, oh yeah, I'm seeing someone or someone has helped me, or sometimes I don't even think they bring it up to their doctors.
Right.
And they just think, oh, this is something again that happens as you get older and I just live with it. And there's no option to help me get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably. Did you know that having urgency incontinence, if you're over 65, doubles your rate of fall risk?
I have heard that statistic before. Yeah.
So that's pretty sobering. I know I've treated patients who maybe they broke their hip or they broke their leg or something like that. And when I asked them, a lot of times they told me like, I was rushing to the bathroom because I had to go, and they fell and broke their hip. But that issue is never treated. The hip's treated, but the reason that they were rushing to the bathroom was never addressed except through medication. And so, huge need. And I would say probably the easiest and the best thing that your patients could do is just simply ask their doctor, hey, could I get a referral for pelvic floor therapy for this problem? And there's very few doctors who would say no to that because they want to help their patients too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think my population is a little bit different in terms of like pelvic floor dysfunction. Like there's the pain side of it, and when I'm seeing the pain side of it, usually it's in regards to I'm treating something else. So I might be treating low back pain or hip pain, and we're working on it, and it's getting better, but it's just not all the way there. And then we start down a line of questioning regarding pelvic floor things. And sometimes there's, either like the dots just aren't connecting just right. Or I've had kind of a line of patients lately who have had previous trauma, whether it's like sexual abuse and things like that. And so that's manifesting in other places.
Yep.
And they really actually need the pelvic floor training because there's a lot of repressed like issues and physical trauma down there. So, so that's one side of things that I'll see. I also see, postpartum moms, not necessarily all that commonly directly postpartum, but even like a few years down the road. And, they either are still dealing with diastasis recti. So their, abdominals still haven't like recovered yet, or they, because they never had any education on how to do that. And then they also don't know how to breathe appropriately.
Yes.
So they have no concept of abdominals versus diaphragm and how to differentiate those things. And so because the population that I see is very active, they're doing pull-ups and lots of sit-ups and CrossFit and that kind of thing. And they're like plateauing on the things that they're doing. And then they're getting hurt because they don't have that foundation of proper control and proper movement in their core. And then it's manifesting as these like external issues. So, or I'm just on the like incontinence side, same thing. I'm seeing women either who are postpartum, who are still dealing with some leakage issues, who are told that this is normal and it's not, and it's incredibly treatable. Or when I start having conversations now that perimenopause is more prevalent, I'm talking to these perimenopausal women who are dealing with vaginal dryness and pain and incontinence and that kind of thing as well. So things that they thought were maybe taken care of postpartum are now starting to come back when they're doing jumping activities or even heavy squatting that they can't, close that pelvic container in.
And are those women who didn't have incontinence before, but they're now noticing, hey, wait a minute, why am I peeing when I jump or do jump rope or anything like that?
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lots of black shorts in the gym.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So when you have conversations with these patients, what do you advise them to do?
So I advise them to see a pelvic floor therapist. That is not my specialty. And I specifically actually do not go in that direction with my treatment because in my opinion, if you're going to do something like that, that is that personal and that is that, in my opinion, specialized, that you really should be an expert. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all that you treat, but it should be a very large portion of what you treat. And because orthopedics is my love, I will refer out to pelvic floor physical therapists. I've made a point to network with a bunch that are in my area, and I love seeing that it is growing, especially in like private practices that are outside of the major health systems, because those health systems, when we've talked about this, these, pelvic floor therapists in the health systems are booked out, weeks to months. Yeah. These private practices usually can get them in a lot sooner. And, in my situation, especially these women can have their problems solved before they even would have gotten to see, a pelvic floor specialist in a system.
Yeah. And the cool thing about that is it's mutual. So like I am not a runner. I'm not a super, super active athlete, but I have patients who maybe they're training for a marathon, or they're a long distance cyclist, or they are an avid runner, or they want to get back to heavy strength training. And I'm just not equipped for that. And yes, I could help them, but I know I'm not the best one for that. And so I have a bunch of sports med and orthopedic physical therapists who I rely on, like, you're at the point where you can start lifting again. But I don't want you just to go back to the gym and just start lifting, and then we're going to be back where we started. Why don't you go see, I have 2-3 recommendations, and work with them on strength programming or, returning to running so that you really can get back to that activity safely and confidently with an expert in the field. So, it's not just, we can do everything, but by working together, we can really help our patients even more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were talking to somebody who's maybe thinking of starting their own business, was a little bit hesitant about that, what would you tell them? What advice might you give them?
I think you have to really find your why, because when things get tough and you start doubting yourself and, maybe you don't have the income, or if it's patients or clientele, whatever it is, it's easy to give up. It's easy to quit. So I think if you have a strong why of, why you're starting your business, whatever healthcare service, whatever it is. I think if you have a strong why, you know, you always come back to that. And that's your vision and your passion to be like, keeping you going, keeping you motivated to, you know, dig your heels in and know that it's not going to be easy when you first start. And I think the companies or the people you see who are successful, you probably hadn't seen their starting point yet. You didn't see all the struggles that they had to go through, all the work and the hustle that they did to get to where they're at. So no one ever just ends up magically, you know, with this beautiful business on social media that looks like they have all these people. They had to start somewhere. And so I just would say, find your why, write it down somewhere. I mean, it's something you have to look at every day in the beginning to keep you going, because it's lonely, you know, especially if you don't have a group and try out like we do. And I didn't have this when I first started. It gets lonely. And it's like I said, it's easy to just give up on yourself because there's no one else rooting for you.
Yeah. You totally took mine. I was going to say, like, and after a while, that initial momentum will stop, right? Like there are going to be those hard days. It's not that shiny, new, exciting thing anymore. And you are just day to day grinding. I love my grind and I love my patience and I love what I'm doing, but also like it is a slog. And again, no one else is cheering for you but you ultimately. So finding your why, finding your tribe, I think is huge because you can learn so much just from conversations with other people. And like solopreneurship does get lonely, even though like we're with people all day, being able to talk to other business owners, there's just that next level of understanding. But also I would highly recommend finding coaching. No matter what your business background is, there is always something that you are going to struggle with. And having a quality coach or even just a mentor is going to help you so much. They're going to help you identify those weak points, hopefully help you either avoid or minimize the repercussions of any mistakes. It's going to make your path just that much smoother. So find some kind of help, and if nothing, and also like it'll just make your business that much better. So absolutely, like coaching, there's a reason why I've stuck with coaching like since my business started, because I am always learning new things. My business is evolving, and having someone with me to hold my hand through that is wonderful.
And I think like we've created friendships, right? And so it's not only about business, right? It's about life too, checking in, and especially going through, like we said, these transitions for the years and your body goes through, like we can share those experiences and, you know, talk about them. So it's not only business, but you're really creating friendships.
And that's, you took mine. That's what I would say, get coaching. You know, I struggled with this on my own for 3 years. And I can guarantee you 100%, I would have been so much further ahead had I started with coaching, but I didn't know about it. And, you know, having that coaching that, you know, like and trust the person, and they're able to not only encourage you and be your cheerleader because they're excited about what you're doing, but also call you out maybe when you need it. Kind of kick you in the pants a little bit when you need to get going and you're hesitating for some reason that doesn't really make sense. And just help you see the big picture, because sometimes you're so much in the details of it that you don't see the big vision as easily. And so that's what I would say for somebody. It's like, figure out a way to pay for it, because it is probably the best investment you'll have is the coaching. Yeah. So, anything else you want to share?
Thanks for having us on.
Yes, this is fun. Yeah. We have been enjoying our time together and just wanted to share that with you. So, hope you have enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the show. Drop in a comment and let us know how you liked this last episode. Do you have questions? Or do you want to connect with us further? Perhaps you're ready to take that next step. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Pelvic Connection with Laura McKaig PT. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Laura McKaig PT, or visit our website at www.pelvicconnection.com to discover our online programs and resources or how to work with us in person. Here's to your pelvic health.